Is he running left, cuts it back right, gets a breakaway.
We'll be walking out here as national champion. I expect nothing less.
There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Dobbs heaves it. They're bunched up in the end zone. It's tipped up. It's caught. It is caught. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Saturday night in Death Valley.
GASN Sports presents the Saturday Supremacy Podcast, celebrating the passion, traditions, and pageantry surrounding college football Saturdays, featuring weekly guests and hard-hitting analysis. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Groniger and Clint Schweitzer.
Well, Noah, 14 weeks of college football have all come down to this. Welcome to Championship Week. College football regular season comes to a close as there is still one spot left in the college football playoff. Who's going to get it? How's it going to happen? We are dialed in for this, and I tell you what, we can't thank you enough for joining us all season long here on the Saturday Supremacy Podcast. Of course, first a film, now a podcast. The film is in post-production right now. We are working on it. Should be done by 2025 or so at our rate right now, Noah.
Maybe summer 2021. We can work hard and get it out there. We'll do our best.
So we wanted this podcast to really reflect the experiences we had on the road during the fall of 2018, where we went to a different SEC football game each week. And now as the film is in post-production and we're putting together everything that we did, all the interviews, and you've heard some of them right here on this podcast exclusively, we wanted to make this not only a podcast about the current situation and everything that's going on and break it down and have great guests on to talk about college football and everything that's going on, but to take you through our experiences and reflect on what we did on our year's journey in making the film that we did and how important college football is to us, the passions and traditions and the pageantry, all of that comes out hopefully in this podcast and what you hear. So with that being said, it's championship weekend and there's still a spot left in the college football playoff. Let's start with the SEC championship game, where it's a very interesting game here, Georgia and LSU, because two contrasting styles, which is insane to be saying that, because in any year prior to this, you'd be saying, well, this is a battle of wills.
A bloodbath,
Which team can run the ball and play better defense? Not so fast. In this case, it's the high-flying offense led by Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, all that he's done and what he's brought to this LSU offense, and the Georgia defense. They've not allowed a rushing touchdown all season long. Jake Fromm has been out of sync with his receivers seemingly all year. It's not been a good year for the Georgia offense, but defensively, can they stay in this game? Because if they do, they're punching their ticket to the college football playoff, and LSU, well, they're already in as it is. So interesting situation in Atlanta coming up on Saturday.
It absolutely is. I mean, you look at this Georgia defense, they could be able to keep the game close. They're going to shut down the run game. They've got a big physical defensive line. But I mean, you've got Joe Burrow out there, and he is going to be launching footballs from all different angles, all over the field. He's going to spread the ball out. He doesn't have a favorite receiver. He'll go to anyone who's open, and that's the best thing about him. And I think kind of what Joe Brady has brought to LSU in this offense, to be able to spread him out and say, hit the open man. And by God, Joe Burrow has done it. He's going to be your Heisman Trophy winner. And we look at this Georgia team, like you mentioned, they struggled against South Carolina. They lost that game on a missed field goal. And Jake Fromm hasn't lived up to expectations and what we thought he would be coming into the season. Another possible Heisman candidate, maybe an outside shot, and he has been kind of a disaster. I mean, he just has not been able to play consistent football, hit the open man, and they've had to rely on the running game of DeAndre Swift, and he was injured in the last game. So is he going to be at a full go, 100% ready to go? I don't think so. So that's really going to limit what Georgia can do offensively, and I don't think they have enough. I think LSU gets the win. And then we move on to talking about, is it Utah or is it Oklahoma? I think those are your two teams. Although
Baylor, come on, Matt Rule.
I guess, yeah, Baylor can upset and blow out Oklahoma and Utah loses. Yeah, it can happen. But I think Alabama should be that number 4 team if Georgia loses. I know they have 2 losses. It's LSU. It's Auburn. Those are 2 great football teams. Yeah, you have 2 losses, but those are impressive losses. I mean, you're losing to LSU, the number 2 team in the country, and then Auburn right now. And Utah's losing to USC, Oklahoma losing to K-State. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, so that does create some chaos for that last spot should Georgia, lose to LSU like we think is going to probably happen. But to me, I think if you look at what Utah's done in their body of work, they've not just won; they've won decisively. You look at how, of course, aside from their loss at USC, the wins over Washington State and Oregon State and the Arizona States of the world, it goes by and they've won by multiple touchdowns. It's not eking out wins. I think their closest win was against Washington, a good team on the road. They're going to have another chance against Oregon. I think Oregon's going to win that game, though, and I think that's what's going to create this problem. Oklahoma, is it as simple as Utah takes themselves out of it Friday night and Saturday it's for Baylor and Oklahoma and the winner goes on? I think it is.
Yeah.
If Utah plays themselves out of it.
But my question to you is, who are you taking? Who's going to win the game between Alabama and Utah, or Alabama and Oklahoma, or Alabama and Baylor?
This year, I honestly don't know.
I think it's Alabama by a long shot. I mean, they've lost to Auburn and they've lost to LSU. I mean, Utah losing to USC with backup quarterbacks, Oklahoma losing to K-State, they're a disaster. I just don't think that you can say that Oklahoma, Baylor, or Utah are better than Alabama, even with the two losses.
Okay, Alabama gave up 101 points in those two losses. So we got to look at that. Their defense is not what it was this year.
It's not, but they're still better than Oklahoma, Baylor, and Utah.
I don't know with Mac Jones. I don't know if that's the case. You saw the way that he turned the ball over in the red zone against rival Auburn. And when you have no wins over a ranked team, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I can't help this football team.
I can. They were impressive against two great teams. Yeah, the defense has fallen off, but I mean, the offense, Mac Jones, he still put up 45 points in that game. If the kicker doesn't miss that kick, they're going into overtime with Auburn. They were right there down to the wire with LSU. Yeah, it was Tua and not Mac Jones, but LSU's defense hasn't been impressive. I think Alabama should be the number 4 team. I know it's controversial. We've got Utah right there sitting there. Oklahoma, they don't have the 2 losses. Alabama does, but I think the Crimson Tide should be in.
Well, they're not going to be, so
no, they
I
aren't.
guess that's a different point for a different day and time. But I'll tell you what, our guest on this week's podcast is we're going to be talking later in the show about coaching changes. We have 3 openings in the SEC right now. USC is a job that as of now has not come open. Clay Helton maybe is safe, and we're going to bring on a former Trojan, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about life, family, relationships, art, all of that with our guest this week, which is Todd Marinovich. Yes, the former Robo QB, the test tube quarterback from California, the USC Trojan, the Oakland Raider. The fact that, does anyone know that Todd played football a year ago professionally for the SoCal Coyotes? Oh my goodness. Todd Marinovich, age 48, played football.
7 touchdowns.
Still in recovery. Still going through issues year to year. Arrests. Addiction problems.
His father with Alzheimer's. I mean, he's got so much going on. He's an eclectic, unique, interesting individual just as a human being alone. Not also to say that he played at USC, he played in the NFL, and he's got all this football knowledge, so we're going to get into all of that and more with Todd Marinovich.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that because he was just at the USC-UCLA game. He says that the USC fans and that program has really just treated him like a god coming back there, and he said that, I'm not near the best quarterback USC's even ever had, and here I am, they treat me well. He's had ups and downs in his life. Everyone's seen the ESPN 30 for 30, the Marinovich Project, which came out back in 2011, which chronicles the relationship he had with his father, the fact that he was unable to eat sweets. He was basically trained from at the time he was a toddler to be an NFL quarterback, and he accomplished that. He was an Oakland Raiders first-round pick, only played 3 years in the league, flamed out, drug problems, addiction. It's all there. We're going to kind of catch up with Todd, see how he's doing. One of our favorite guests. It's been 3 years since we last talked to Todd, see how things have changed since then. Since then, his dad has been stricken with Alzheimer's. He's played in a professional football game, throwing 7 touchdowns at age 48. My mind can't wrap around that. It's insane.
Puts Tom Brady to shame. Tom Brady's only 42, and he's struggling to throw 2 touchdowns in a game. And here is Todd Marinovich, 48 years old, 7 touchdowns. It's great to see.
Well, no, I know there are a lot of sports fans out there like us, a lot of football fans that know the game so well that they could choose any game and call it. Well, MyBookie is the place for you because they let you turn all your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Between football season, NBA, and the start of college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy who likes to bet a little to win a lot, try a parlay. For instance, if you like a couple of big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. So, if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag, because no one gives you more ways to win. Tired of watching games from the couch with nothing to gain? MyBookie wants to get your mind off everything else and back on the game. If you join right now, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway, all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. Just use promo code Saturday to activate the offer. Once again, that's promo code Saturday to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. And it's great to hear from you. It's been way too long. What's been up, man? It's been a few years. In the meantime, nothing's really happened, Todd. In the meanwhile, I mean, you've only played football again since we last talked to you.
Wow.
Right? You've thrown 7 touchdowns in a football game since we last spoke.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, I had. It was interesting. I live out in the Coachella Valley, and I moved out here about 3 years ago, and I was really active in the community, doing a lot of talks to local high schools and just sharing, what I went through in my experience, and have had a ton of life lessons, so to speak, and like we all do. And, the community was really welcoming, and I got to do that, and it was super cool. And one of the things I was doing, I was coaching with this football team that were a bunch of guys that young, aspiring young men, football players that wanted to make it to the next level. And they're not kids, they're young men, and they played all over college football all over the country and had some stumbles along the way, like myself. And they were trying to get back to their dream. And I was working with them, and Coach Miller was the head coach, and their quarterback at the time got a head coaching job at a high school out here, and they were quarterbackless. And he looked at me and he goes, "God, you're in shape. Why don't you give it a shot?" And I hadn't actually played clear-minded. That's minus drugs and alcohol, since I was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
And I went, you know what? Yeah, I will give it a shot. And I wanted to really know, because I got carried away in this kind of a locomotive of an experience early on where I really didn't know because it started so young, because my dad was a part of football since, his whole life. But as early as I can remember, I was at training camps and looking up to these guys, these giants of men, and I was like, I want to do that. And then along the way, I really never questioned it. And so, when my NFL career was cut short because of my illness, I wondered. I was like, God, did I really even want to play? I knew I did at a young age, but did it get out of control to where I may have bowed out earlier than I did? And so, a long answer to, I don't know if you even asked the question, but I just really wanted to see if I loved it, and I did. It was super fun, and one of the best parts about it was the offense that they're called the Southern California Coyotes ran was put in by Mouse Davis, the old run and shoot guy, one of the really godfathers of the passing game. And I even flew up to where Mouse has retired to, up in Portland, and spent a weekend with him. And what a treat. He's in his mid-80s, and you would not even know it. Guys is full of life, just a ton of wealth of information. And I had never been in a system like that where actually I felt like the offense has a an unfair advantage. Because everything that it was aimed to do is the receivers all had choice routes. There had never been a system like that before, because we always had one guy, and that was usually my go-to guy, either a tight end or kind of a like slot receiver. And it was super fun. And I only played one game. That's all I needed. I think I was 48, 49 at the time. And my teammates are in their early 20s, and it was super. And that's the whole thing. What the goal was, it's fun. And you know what football is? Yeah, it was more than that. It was a great experience.
Well, Todd, Tom Brady's only 42 years old. The Chargers may be moving on from Phillip Rivers out there in your backyard in Los Angeles. Are we going to have an NFL comeback here?
With me?
Yeah.
That's flattering, Clint. But no, that's the last, my last, shot at it. And it really wasn't, I don't think it could be considered a comeback. It was more a personal quest to just really, like I explained, just to see if I really enjoyed what I had spent so much time doing. And I look back on, because I played a lot of football, even though it was a really, really short career in the NFL. There was a lot of hours spent on and off the field that, the normal person doesn't realize when, and now I have a 10-year-old boy who is an aspiring, young football player that dreams of big things, and I support that. I like to share with him the players that he's watching and it's funny because, kids are, and they get it from their parents, they get critical about guys that they're seeing are the best in the world. And when I kind of chuckle and then have to pull him aside when he is critical about it, and I just got to say that what we get to see on Sundays, there's thousands upon thousands of hours that these guys have dedicated themselves to, which is really it's special. And I think we need to be careful because we all have our teams, and there's a lot of rivalries between other teams that we can lose sight of the special qualities of these athletes.
Well, Todd, I know just a few weeks ago, you and some of their family went to the USC game. I think it was the UCLA game.
Yeah.
And so now we know it looks like Clay Helton's going to be back at USC. Just talk about your experience going back there and kind of what you see in the program. I mean, Clay Helton's been a guy that's been on the hot seat since he was hired. He's back and forth, and the season ended on a good note for the Trojans. So just kind of talk about your experience going back, what that was like. And I think you had a cool shirt on, like one of your UCLA moments, beating UCLA back in the day. You had that shirt on from from back in the day, and what your experience was like. And Todd Helton, is he the guy there at USC? What do they do, man?
It's news to me. I thought that the Trojans were going in a different direction. I didn't know. I thought they were going, a new way. So that being supportive of Coach Helton is something I've always done because I have a relationship with his dad. His dad coached the offensive line with the Raiders and was so good to me. And I learned at a young age that you're only as good as the big guys up front. And I was always close to the guy that coached those big guys. And so, like I said, even though my career was short with the Raiders, he really made a huge impression on me. And so, USC's coach, I just respect and give him 100% of support because, gosh, I would not want that job. Talk about a tradition that doesn't really do well if you're not going to the Rose Bowl. I mean, you'd be, 7-3, and it's a down year.
The demands placed on you.
Yes, And it really, gosh, Clint, times have changed so much. I'm really, because my son has got me back into, so to speak, the football world. And we went to that modern day St. John Bosco game. Talk about times of changing. I remember playing against Long Beach Poly back in the day, and they always were the perennial, not great teams, but great athletes that put out a lot of college prospects and even NFL guys. And there might be on those Long Beach Poly teams a handful of guys that made that next jump. On the field, that game with Modern Day and St. John Bosco, there's over 50 players that are going to Division I colleges and playing football, and that was just staggering to me. And college football back in the day, I was blown away in several ways. But I tend to focus on the quarterback and watch the quarterback, and both quarterback play was next level. Bryce Young is the special player that the Trojans let get away, and now I think he's going to Alabama. And the other kid for St. John Bosco is going to Clemson, and they both just put on a show. What a great game! So back to the SC UCLA experience. What a great day! I took my kids. I had some shirts made of just a classic moment that was captured funny by the Daily Bruin, which is the student newspaper back in the day of Matt Darby, a defensive back, reaching down to help me off the grass. And in rivalry-like form and really unsportsmanlike form, I posted that shot a couple of years ago, and a lady responded, "Classy, real classy." And I cracked up because in reality, it is poor sportsmanship. I mean, he's reaching down to help me up, and I'm giving him the finger. And I made it a painting, and I put it on T-shirts, and I took 50 of them to the game, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? It cost me almost $1,000. I might try to make my money back. I gave them all away, and I'll tell you, I would do it again because
That's awesome.
It was so cool to where I got to take my kids down the sidelines prior to the game, and they get to feel the energy of that because it's super special. And there's some young ladies on the sidelines, and they're decked out in their UCLA gear. And I said, "It looks like you guys need a real T-shirt." And I really didn't realize it. And I showed it to them. I said, "I want to give you girls this if you wear it." And I said, it's not even pro USC. It's actually, it could go both ways. And it's showing your Bruin, showing sportsmanship, showing what really, what football is intended to be. We compete, but we're also not kicking guys when they're down. And they put it right on, and I moved on to other, fans that they treated me like a legend, which I don't see myself as that, but they sure treated me as one back there at the Coliseum. And for my kids to experience that was, it's so special that, I stayed, me and my kids stayed the night with a teammate she's a widow now because my teammate passed away this January. And what is really sad on many levels is our starting four linebackers off our Trojan Rose Bowl team that year are all no longer on the planet. And there's something about this concussion issue that is really real. Because all these men, it's tragic and it's unthinkable because I knew them deeply, that none of them were the type that would want to check out. And so I think that we really need to take a look at it. And how I am approaching it with my son is he's not playing tackle football until he's 16.
Yeah.
We don't, Clint, here it is. Basically, we don't allow our children to get behind a wheel and drive an automobile. I don't think it should be considered any different because there are many car crashes are what's going on. And I've heard arguments about, well, they're too little and they're not creating enough force, and that is information. And if there's anything, if I'm going to join any cause, which I'm on the precipice of becoming an advocate for, is abolishing youth tackle football in our country. Because if our kids are our future, we are setting them up for brain damage by allowing this. And now, as a parent who loves the game of football, I really, it's made me look at my parenting skills, really, and saying, okay, I love this game, but let's look at the information and the data behind it. Is it something that I'm willing to risk? Absolutely not.
I tell you what, Todd, it was just so sad for us to read the Sports Illustrated article and to read about your dad, Marv, battling Alzheimer's. And I wanted to bring it up only because I wanted to ask you if that happening and kind of what you've gone through with him, if that going through the disease that he's going through, which is horrible and crippling and no one should ever have to go through that, if that's sort of put your relationship, your football past, your life more in perspective as you and your family has had to deal with this?
It's, God, I can't even describe and I, like you hit it on the head. It's something that I wouldn't wish on anybody to see a parent or any loved one go through this. I say it is what it is, and he, at this point, I was just there last week, and thank God for the gift of music, because at this point, that's what I bring him, and he loves it. I play, I write songs. I'm an artist, and so there's been times in my life where I haven't had a canvas or paint around, and so I had a guitar, and I picked it up, and I write songs, and I play them, and that's what I do when I go visit him, and it's such a gift, man, because he'll get his knee tapping, and his head, he almost is looking like Ray Charles, closing his eyes, his head's going back and forth, and that is priceless, because he can't verbalize who I am, but there's something in his heart that knows who I am, and I feel that, and that's why, till the end, I will continue going and bringing him a part of me through song, which is super special. It is like one of the hardest things that I've had to walk through, because, gosh, seeing somebody, and this is what really, not even somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, just seeing your folks deteriorate is such a trip where it just, everything changes as we get further along in this journey, where I'm questioning it when I had kids, another 8 and 10, which just blows me away. I was just holding them. It felt like,
right.
And my friends are further along in this parenting thing, where most of them now are in college, the kids of my close friends, and so they get to see me kind of pick up a little later. But they told me all this stuff, and until you experience it, you don't know. But it happens so fast, and I'm just trying to enjoy every moment with them. And in my dad's case, I am so lucky because the article was brilliantly written. I gotta say, Michael Rosenberg was, how he pieced all that together, I don't even know how he did it. What it did, it brought me and my sister closer together.
Yeah.
My mom and I now are even closer together, and it was so honest on both my part and my sister Tracy's part, where we grew up in a house where I was looking at her like she's the lucky one, and she was looking at me like I'm the lucky one because I'm getting all the time and attention. And it's both of our experiences were abusive, and not that anybody. I really think that growing up in this world today, you experience trauma. I don't think there's any escape. And something that I do want to say before we sign out is, in my recovery process, I did not realize, and I don't think the whole rehabilitation from drugs and alcohol realized until late, what a part trauma plays in someone's addiction, in their life. And it seems to pan out to where they struggle with drugs and alcohol if you haven't addressed the trauma that you experienced at a young age. And finally, I did this treatment called EMDR, and it changed my life. It really is a reprocessing of this trauma that you've had. And what I found out, which was amazing, is since my trauma was so intense, it was burying all these beautiful, beautiful experiences and memories that I just didn't realize were even happened until I did this treatment. And so it really changed my whole perspective on my folks, my sister, on my life. And so if my whole message, Clint, is that if anybody's had childhood trauma, look up EMDR and explore it, because it really profoundly affected me.
That's so wonderfully said, Todd, and I just love the fact that you can be in this kind of situation with your dad and be able to kind of confront your past and move on from it and look to where he's at now and know that that football is still a big part of your life. That's wonderful to know, because for a lot of people that could have been the end and you could have never looked back. And I'm just so glad to hear things are going so well for you, Todd. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. That's why I reached out. And before we let you go, I know you still are commissioning paintings, still doing great work as an artist. Tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you, how they can, if they wanted a painting done, how they could do that, and how they can get a hold of you and make that happen, and what you can do for them.
Thanks, Clint, and I really appreciate you having me on. And you're right, I could talk to you for the rest of the afternoon.
Right.
And it would be easy. It wouldn't feel like a chore.
Right.
And art has been, I have always said art, I was an artist first and then an athlete, and now I've been getting to paint for a living, and it's been a dream. And if anybody has any interest, it's my website's MarinovichArt.com. And I have been fortunate, just, for the last 11 years of people contacting me and coming to me with an idea, and I get to create it, and they get to hang it in their homes, and that's super, super special. And now I'm at a point where the Raiders, like I was saying, I've done some pieces the last few years for them, and as you know, they're moving to Las Vegas, and they have a space there. That's, wow. I get to create some art for the stadium and for their facilities in Henderson, and I just get to paint it, and they're not saying do this, do that. They respect my artistic eye and ability, and so I get to just paint. And so if you're ever out in Las Vegas, which I think a lot of people are, I think that's going to be a really good move for them.
Yeah.
We'll see. You might see some of my stuff hanging in the rafters. Yeah, it gives me goosebumps.
Well, I am so glad for that, and so just such a fan of your story. I mean, I remember watching the Marinovich project and being just completely riveted. That came out in 2011. And since then, we've been able to interview you twice here on our show, and we can't thank you enough for that. Next time that we're out in the Southern California area, man, let's get together and hang out sometime and show us some of the work you've done. Show us what's up, man. We'd love to do it. We'd love to, grab some lunch somewhere, maybe some In-N-Out Burger. It's my favorite. That's the only place I know where to go, and I'm in Southern California. So I never miss that. But no, we got to make it happen, man. It'd be great to do that. We should make that happen next time we're out there.
For sure. Anytime, Clint. Yeah, contact me. You got my number.
Yeah. Todd, you're the best, man. Continued success, continued health, continued happiness. Best of wishes to your family and to your father right now. And we'll definitely be in touch. Let us know how everything's going, and we'll do it again soon. Can't thank you enough for doing it with us today, my friend. There you have it with our good friend, Todd Marinovich. We talked about hopefully getting to see him next time we're in Southern California. He's just a guy that's always someone that I've kept in my heart because I know what he's went through. We've interviewed him before. We've gone through what it was like in the documentary and what his life's been like since then. But it seems like he's come to terms with it. Football's a big part of his life. When he could have turned his back on it, he keeps going back time and time again. He's got his kids involved. His kids are big-time fans.
Or maybe his kids are getting him re-involved with football as they go through, and they're starting at age 10, going through the football process and wanting to be a player in the National Football League when they grow up. So it's kind of brought Todd back into it and opened up his heart and his mind to the idea of football coming back in his life, and that's why we saw him in that USC-UCLA game.
He talked about his time there and what it meant, and the fact that Clay Helton, that he has ties to Clay, and that he's every bit as on board with things, keeping on board with the Trojans. I don't know if Clay Helton's a guy that's going to take USC back to the Rose Bowl. He's been to one. People do tend to forget that. He's got that team to a Rose Bowl, that great game. You saw Sam Darnold, against Penn State a few years ago. Other coaching openings. You got 3 in the SEC. You've got Missouri, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. Rank those jobs. Who's the better job out of those 3?
Oh, man, I think it's got to be Missouri at number 1. Maybe you're not talking about the facilities and just it as an entire athletics program, but when you're looking at where you're playing, the SEC East, it's a very winnable division. If you're in the SEC West, if you're going to an Arkansas and Ole Miss, you got to contend with, as where they are right now, you even got to contend with the Mississippi States and Texas A&Ms, but the big dogs, if you're wanting to win the SEC West, you're talking Alabama, LSU, Auburn. That is a mountain to climb. That is a lot of work. You're going to have to roll your sleeves up, and I don't know if even $9 million a year is worth that kind of work to try and get above Nick Saban and where LSU is at and where Auburn's at with Gus Malzahn. I just don't like it. So if I'm a coach out there, I'm wanting to coach in the SEC, I'm looking at these 3 openings, I am picking Missouri. I'm going to go after Georgia. They don't seem to be a super strong team, especially this year, and you got Jake Fromm there who hasn't had a great year, and he'll be moving on. And you've got Florida there. I never really trust them and what Dan Mullen has there and the quarterbacks that they have, and Kyle Trask or whether it be Felipe Franks. So I look at Missouri. They have a real shot to win the SEC East. So I look at that as the number 1 job in the SEC right now that's open.
How about the fact that Ole Miss basically seemingly admitted that the Barry Odom firing at Missouri kind of lit a fire under him and said, well, if 6-6 isn't good enough at Missouri, then 4-8 shouldn't be good enough here at Ole Miss. And, Barry Odom was a Missouri alum. Matt Luke was an Ole Miss alum. We loved Matt Luke. We thought he was a great guy. The team stormed out of the facility when they heard Matt Luke went out. Didn't happen at Missouri. Things fell apart at Missouri and to the point where it was irreparable. I get that. Arkansas's opening's been for a couple weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks. That job's been open. Missouri, some of the names being thrown around, guys like Willie Fritz at Tulane, Jim McElwain, who won at Florida 2 SEC East championships.
Now at Central Michigan doing well.
I don't think that's a bad hire. I see a lot of Missouri fans really poo-pooing that away. It
could have to do with the naked photo on top of the shark there.
That's been debunked. That wasn't Jim. Right, everyone?
Not enough people know about that it wasn't Jim McElwain, and there's a lot of people out there spewing that and saying that it's Jim McElwain, and so there's going to be a lot of members of your fan base that don't know that and are going to flood in, and how can we hire this guy? So just for that alone, I think I'm going to pass. You
got guys like Mike Norvell from Memphis that I think is going to go to Florida State. That's all but done. Arkansas, thinking about Lane Kiffin, riding the Lane train. Did Missouri think about the Missouri fan base and what we've been through. We cover the Missouri Tigers on a daily basis. If Missouri fired Barry Odom to wind up with someone like Willie Fritz, who coached at Central Missouri, is 59 years old, has gray hair, like another Missouri hire that took place a few years ago in a different sport, you can't sell that.
You absolutely can. If you're firing Barry Odom, then this has to say we're trying to be better than that. We're trying to be better than a 6-6, 7-5, even an 8-4 team. We're going out to win the SEC East. That's what this move signifies.
Which is what Jim McElwain's done.
Yeah.
Twice at Florida in the 3 years he was there.
Yeah, and just some of these other names. I mean, if you're going to talk Mike Norvell, although it seems like that's a done deal, and it doesn't have to be someone that's done it before, although that does lend itself to a more known quantity, but someone that you feel like can really take this program and rise it up to where you envision it and want it to be, which is what you've said that you want in firing Barry Odom. And some of these names they're throwing out of Willie Fritz just doesn't do that for me. That's another Barry Odom, possibly even worse. I mean, and you need someone that can recruit Missouri, can get into Kansas City and St. Louis and keep these kids here and not have them go out. You've got to keep a majority of these kids here, and that's what they're looking at for this next coach.
What about Brian Hartson, the guy at Boise State that's won there? We've seen what Boise State coaches have gone on to do. Dan Hawkins didn't work out at Colorado, but Chris Peterson, who just stepped down at Washington, had a nice run there as coach of the Huskies. I don't really know what the circumstances are there, but someone like that, does it have to be a name? Does it have to be someone just with the coaching experience? What does Missouri need? Is it someone to sell the fan base? What do they need?
They need
a proven winner?
They need someone that they believe in that is going to, and they can only know this by meeting with them, spending time with them, and going into their past and seeing what they've done there, that will raise the program and be a winner. Maybe it's not a splash, big name at the beginning. And I know that's what a lot of people are saying. That's what they need to make a big splash. And so the fans are happy, but it comes down to winning and losing. If you make this big splash, you go out and get Lane Kiffin, and it's a disaster, and you're losing football games, and he's got scandals out there, it doesn't matter that it was a big splash hire and fans were on board at the beginning. It matters sustained success. And whoever that is, whoever they deem that is, they have to hit, they have to make it work, and they have to win, and the fans will get on board.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see where things go. By the time this airs, there could be more news. You never know. Will Healy's a name, the University of Charlotte coach that got them to their first bowl game, has been talked to. His name's been tossed around with Ole Miss and Missouri. Young guy. Maybe this football's trending into just young guys with charisma that know how to coach offense. I think that's something that's
it's working for the Bengals and Zach Taylor, who's coming from the Rams system. I believe they just won their first game. They're 1-10 now. They beat the Jets. So
the NFL's a whole different animal when it comes to coaching, of course. But I know what you mean, and I know that how much we think of Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. But as we bid farewell, we're going to be around. We've got the College Football Playoff Committee is going to get this together, and we're going to know next week the bowl games. We're going to know that, so we're going to be coming back and talking about that as we jet towards the postseason, which we will know more about, of course, after Saturday. I mean, is there anything else? Do we have anything to
Clemson shouldn't be in the College Football Playoff? Did I leave that out of my hot takes?
Well, I was just wrapping up. What? Clemson, they're undefeated. We've never seen them play all year except North Carolina. They almost lost to them.
No, they should be in, but Alabama deserves to be in. They at least played someone. Clemson hasn't played anyone all year. Who have they played? Nobody. They just get to waltz right in because they haven't played any. You have to play someone. They can make a stand. Say, you haven't played anyone. You didn't schedule anyone. You're not playing anyone. Good night, nurse. Goodbye, Clemson.
Well, you play 3 or 4 non-conference games. What's to say that your conference opponents can't actually be good and step up? Why is Florida State or Miami, some of these programs, just dog poo right now when they...
Virginia Tech aren't living up to expectations. So
right.
A lot of it is just, hey, I mean, it's not our fault that Virginia Tech and
Clemson scheduled Texas A&M that nearly beat them last year and was a hot name coming in. They didn't live up to it. Again, it's not Clemson's fault that nobody lives up to the hype, right?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that, but they also haven't played anyone. So how they're number 3 right now, I mean, I think they need to start making a move, and it's not leaving Clemson out. I know they're undefeated, reigning national champions. They're going to be in, but I think moving forward, they need to put their foot down and start making it known. And not with Clemson, not right now. That was kind of just out there. I was being extreme, going to extremes to make a point that they need to start moving towards. You have got to play people in your non-conference, not just schedule one Texas A&M. You have got to play people. Alabama didn't, I know, but they can rely on the SEC. You cannot rely on the ACC to say, hey, we're going to have someone be good in the... No, you're not.
That's a good point.
There's a good chance that you're not going to play a good team in the ACC, so you've got to go out and schedule more than just a Texas A&M team.
Yeah, you know what? That part of it I can't argue with, because in the SEC is the only conference that you can really count on that you're going to be playing top 10 teams throughout the year. And even Alabama only got to play the 2. I mean, it wasn't like, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and all these teams they played were Tennessee, where they were all subpar teams, and that didn't help Alabama any either.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the SEC being down, except it was being top heavy this year, definitely didn't help them out at all. Texas A&M being down, we talked about. Ole Miss, Tennessee not living up to preseason expectations. Georgia even being down kind of hurts just kind of the SEC brand and how it's looked at this season. Florida not following through and overtaking Georgia, or it coming down to the wire really, and the injuries there didn't help them with Felipe Franks going down. But so it's been an interesting season in the SEC. Alabama being left out, I don't agree with it. I understand it in real terms, and the committee looking at it, you got 2 losses, you can't be in. But when looking at the eye test and who would beat who, the best 4 teams, I got to have Alabama in if Georgia loses.
Well, what I gather from this is that LSU is going to waltz through this thing, and they're the national champions. I mean, we haven't talked much about Ohio State. They play Wisconsin. We expect Ohio State to take care of business there. They've already beaten Wisconsin once, and it was decisively. So we're leaving.
I fully expect LSU to waltz through this college football playoff with really no worry at any point in any game. I see Ohio State out there. I just don't like what I see against Penn State and Michigan. LSU's done it all season long. They've taken care of business, played great teams. And
they have.
Yeah.
Schedule, it's unprecedented. I think I read that.
Florida, Auburn, Alabama. I mean, I think that they're going to roll in the college football playoff, and we'll see what happens from here.
I can't wait. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. We always appreciate the feedback as we continue on here on the Saturday Supremacy Podcast. It's been a pleasure being with you all year, and we are not done yet. So tune in next week because we're going to be talking about the college football playoff, the bowl games. We're going to do a little roundabout with that, so can't wait for that. Big thanks to Todd Marinovich for joining us, guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Todd's a good friend, a good guy, and someone that just, his whole life just trying to find himself. He's an introspective person. He's an artist. He's got so much talent in other ways other than football, but he always goes back to football. That's kind of in his blood. That's his, his upbringing. That's all it included. Now he has other interests. That's great. And we would definitely want to send all you guys to MarinovichArt.com to check out his work and have a painting commission. He's got some great stuff here. Just on his page, you see a painting he did of David Bowie. You've got Walter Payton there, and just like a nice landscape shot. Like he can do it all.
And with Christmas time coming up, If you have an idea, family member, pet, just whatever means something to the person that you're trying to find a gift to, you can go to MarinovichArt.com. Tell him your idea. Send him some pictures, send him some sketches of your idea, and he will make it come to life beyond your wildest imagination. He is the best. He will get it done. It's a great Christmas gift. Hit up MarinovichArt.com.